It's very much a reset, reboot, and looking at how we can give better value for money and deliver better outcomes for nature. The pot will be less. I think that's certain. The spending review is harsh.
Peter Craven, the man in charge of agriculture at Natural England, says the sustainable farming incentive really will make a comeback. We ask him, what will it look like? MPs debate the future for Britain's small abattoirs, and as silage season hots up, make sure you stay safe and on the right side of the law. Welcome to the Farmers Weekly podcast. I'm Johann.
I'm Louise Impey.
And I'm Hugh Broom.
All that and more coming up, but first, Trump and tariffs. The UK and the US have reached a deal on some goods traded between the two countries. Until now, imports of US beef into the UK have been subject to a 20% tariff and limited to 1,000 metric tonnes. The UK has scrapped the tariff and raised the quota to 13,000 tonnes. The deal will also allow 1.4 billion litres of ethanol into the UK from the USA tariff-free. In a statement to Parliament, UK Trade Minister Douglas Alexander focused on what he said were the benefits for British farmers and insisted there would be no imports of hormone-treated beef or chlorinated chicken into the UK from America.
Turning next to agriculture, for the first time ever, this deal will open up exclusive access for UK beef farmers to the US market. Currently, only a few other countries, like Australia, enjoy such access. This is a major opportunity for British farmers to increase their exports to the world's largest consumer market, helping them to grow their businesses. Let me be clear that the imports of hormone-treated beef or chlorinated chicken will remain illegal. The deal we've signed today will protect British farmers and uphold our high animal welfare and environmental standards. Any agricultural imports coming into the United Kingdom will have to meet our high SPS standards.
UK Trade Minister Douglas Alexander. So Hugh, the American National Cattlemen's Beef Association is describing this as a tremendous win for American family farmers and ranchers. Is it, do you think?
Well, it's a tiny amount, isn't it? I told you what it is in terms of, you look at it, like I say, if you look at it in terms of the kill in the UK context, it's about a week's kill. So that's probably like, an hour's kill in American context. I mean, look, democratically, politically, they're obviously lauding it and they're being told by the White House to make a big deal out of it because showing that Donald Trump can do trade deals. But in terms of tonnage and volume and access to the UK market, it increases their access to the UK market. But given, if you look at the data on the US last year, their imports of beef went up by 24% because they're so short of beef. So they're not exactly, for those small niche producers in the US who are hormone-free, prophylactic antibiotic-free, and they comply with our production standards, it's an opportunity. I get that. But that would be a real small majority, wouldn't it? It'd be like saying, this is a great deal for organic Dexter producers in England type thing.
UK Trade Minister Douglas Alexander making a big play in the audio that we've heard about no hormone-treated beef coming into the country and chlorinated chicken still being kept out as well.
Yeah, and that's really important. And I think from the context, particularly, again, back to the European context, if we are going to hopefully have some sort of more logical trade arrangement and less frictious, that's not a word, is it? Less friction in the trade with our friends in Europe, then the last thing we want to be doing is lowering our standards here, because that'll be the first reason that Europe won't want to cooperate with us if there are opportunities there. So it's really important, as well as all the obvious things around unfair competitive advantage for UK producers who can't use these products.
Beef, of course, not the only product in this agreement. The trade deal is also going to reduce the UK's 19% tariff on US ethanol to zero, and that's going to allow in 1.4 billion litres of ethanol into the UK tariff-free. Big implications for UK arable growers, Louise.
Yeah, I think it will have an effect on the bioethanol industry in this country, which, to be fair, has had a bit of a checkered history, really. You know, we've had these plants open and close and open again and what have you. But at the moment, the Vivergo plant, which a lot of our listeners will be familiar with, that up in Yorkshire is operating. So it takes feed wheat, really, from farms in the area. So they're turning feed wheat into bioethanol. Now, before, American ethanol was subject to a tariff of somewhere, it was 10 to 50%, depending on its use. So we're going to get a lot of litres coming in without that tariff on it now. I think the NFU have said that they're still looking into what that means for this market, but probably not really very good news for feed wheat growers up in the north who have been supplying that plant. We'll have to see what the detail says and what the finalised agreement looks like. But that may be something that we have had to sacrifice, I'm afraid.
So, Hugh, with all that in mind, what's your verdict?
Yeah, do you know, look, the world's short of protein, so I can't. The beef price, there'll be pressure on. I mean, it's staying where it is. Well, it might come back a bit, but I think the American deal is an interesting one. And if you wind back to before Donald Trump got all handy with his tariffs, we're sort of back in a way in some aspects, like on cars, we're back sort of similar-ish to where we were there, because obviously it went from, I think it was 8 or 7%, then it shot up to 27%, now back to 10%. The metals are slightly different. On the farming front, we've got, 13,000 tonnes of ring-fenced quota, TRQ, which we can push into America. So America basically has 65,000 tonnes of international quota that can bring imports in. So mainly that's coming from Brazil, Canada. Where is the other one? Brazil, Canada. There was one other, and Australia. And it was normally done on a first come, first serve basis. So you've got to get your quota requested and then get it awarded to then ship it into the US. So what this trade deal does is it effectively ring fences about 13,000 tonnes for us exclusively of the UK. Now that's still subject to tariffs, I think, of up to about 10 or 15%, depending on the cut that goes in. Okay, but you've got the transaction. The US can send basically 1,000 tonnes more our way. So they can send 14,000 tonnes. Putting 13,000 tonnes into context, roughly at the moment, last year, if you average last year's prime beef kill in the UK, we were killing about just over 40,000 a week. So 13,000 in really, and this is really crude, I get that because a kill out percentage is carcass balance. But if you take a cow and a carcass is 300 odd kilos, isn't it? So roughly speaking, 300 to 400 kilos. So do the math. What's that into 13,000 tonnes? It's going to be 3 times roughly 13,000, so 39,000 cattle. So it's a week's kill, isn't it? So that gives you an idea. I suppose the big worry is it's like the Australia deal. If the market collapsed tomorrow for whatever reason, they've got that access. It's not as bad as Australia because Australia has carte blanche open access into us. Okay, so this is nothing like as bad.
And is there anything that might be contained in the fine print, which obviously we haven't seen yet, but is there anything that could be in there that would be of a bigger concern to you?
I think that they're assuring us, the government's assuring us, Steve Reed was tweeting like hell about it the other day, that basically, what's he saying, that they've maintained the whole sanitary protocol. So the idea is, not having hormone beef here and not having chlorine, whatever, washed chicken here. So the methods of production are protected. So there will be, the US beef that comes in. So if you go to the wonderful 34, if you've got loads of money, Louise, well, you've got loads of money, Louise, when your husband takes you to 34 Steakhouse off Grosvenor Square in central London, you can buy US steak there. And there is some USDA approved steak that's on, in the UK. Now that comes from farming systems that are not like the most of the US, if that makes sense. So you've got this, effectively that what comes in should stick with that. And actually, if you think about it, this is a bit of a prelude, isn't it, into the whole the big one really to watch out for now is the EU one. For the US, I think this is interesting because all the commentators today are saying, this is about Donald showing that he can do trade deals because his guy's sitting down with the Chinese guy in Geneva at the weekend and they're going to start talking. So it shows that he can get something over the line. It's a bit like Boris showing that he could get, New Zealand, Australia over the line 3 years ago, when it was. But the big one is going to be the EU one. That's the big one for us because they're still our major trading partner. It's like, no, I can't say it on the air because it's too rude, but it's really obvious. Your governor of the Bank of England was saying this with the interest rate drop interview that, it's really important. And actually, there are still some issues there. If you are a lamb exporter, if you are sending whole carcass lamb into the Paris market or into Germany or wherever those guys send it, which is a really important trade for our sheep farmers here. It's massively important. It's half our production we export. If suddenly you get a phone call at 3 a.m. from French customs telling your 1,000 lamb carcasses on the wagon there's a problem with the paperwork, we're going to have to reject it or we're going to have to send it back. That's a worst, it's a nightmare scenario. And you know what? Occasionally it still happens. So we need to get rid of all that border friction with the EU and make sure it's as easy running as possible. So you've got to protect yourself from potentially, no disrespect for the Americans, their production systems coming into here, because without that protection, the EU are not going to be as open around their veterinary agreements and they're sort of trying to, it's reinventing the blooming wheel, isn't it, pre-Brexit? But back to where we were, will we ever get on total parity with cynosanitary and all the veterinary stuff? Who knows? But if we get some way towards it, it should make trade a bit easier with the EU. And that's the big goal, isn't it?
The Farmers Weekly Podcast.
What does the future hold for the rural way of life? If you care about farming, food, nature and the countryside we all rely on, don't miss Future Countryside 2025. This isn't just another conference. It's a live stream gathering of the people shaping tomorrow's countryside, from policymakers to farmers, foresters to rural innovators. And best of all, it's free to join. You'll hear from key voices like Michael Gove, Tony Juniper and NFU's Tom Bradshaw, tackling the big questions about rural livelihoods, climate, health, biodiversity and beyond. So whether you're on the land, in the cab or running a rural business, this event is for you. Register now for the free live stream and be part of the conversation shaping the countryside for the future. Future Countryside 2025. Don't just hear about change, be part of it.
The Farmers Weekly Podcast.
Now, it's 2 months since DEFRA abruptly closed the sustainable farming incentive to new applicants in England. The flagship scheme rewards farmers for producing food sustainably while protecting and enhancing the environment. The closure of the SFI left thousands of farmers unable to secure funding, although the government insists the scheme will eventually reopen. So will it? When? And what will it look like? All questions Louise and I put to Natural England Head of Agriculture Peter Craven at this week's Farmers Weekly Transition Live event at Leeds. This is what he told us.
It's very much a reset, reboot, and looking at how we can be more give better value for money. And deliver better outcomes for nature. So how that works, what that looks like. There's been 2 stakeholder engagements now, so it's bringing that sort of voice from industry and getting different opinion. But that is definitely being worked up. Believe me, that is definitely being worked up. But what will that look like yet? We'll see later this year.
Well, that colleague that is with me is, of course, Louise Impey from the Farmers Weekly podcast and Farmers Weekly itself. Louise.
Well, Peter, I understand you say we don't know what that looks like yet, but have you been given any indication of what the budget for that might look like?
So of course we're waiting for the spending review, and that will have lots of knock-on effects to everybody, of which it's having knock-on effects to us at Natural England. So we're all being challenged to do more with less, and just as farmers are. So this is affecting everybody in our whole industry. It's a tumultuous time for us all, and I was at an event last night. I was talking on my Nuffield Farming Scholarship to a group of NFU farmers in Suffolk, and the tension of the inheritance tax. I mean, I don't want to get us dragged into that, but it is palpable, and it's starting to bite. And so getting some of this right is important.
You say about the sustainable farming incentive that it is a reset moment. It is coming back, isn't it? I mean, there is a feeling that, is this the end of the sustainable farming incentive? Could it be a tighter budget? Could it be more restrictive? Could fewer things be funded? And could indeed it be open to fewer farmers when it does come back, if indeed it does?
So certainly they've been talking about targeting, they've been talking about capping, they've been talking about value for money. All of this stuff is sensible stuff. It's stuff that probably should have already been happening. But as we go forward, you try and make things better. And undoubtedly there will be a better result at the end of this. Okay, it will be the pot will be less. I think that's certain. The spending review is harsh, but we're looking forward to this coming out and this reset, and we've got CS higher tier stuff going on. We've got landscape recovery projects just starting. There is some hope there, but yeah, we are facing. I put some slides up last night, and you look at that ag transition as like the starting point almost of where we are. But then we had COVID, we had get Brexit done, we had rising input costs, we've had labour shortages, we've had extreme weather conditions, we've had a 1 in 100 year sort of heat events that are then coming every year almost. We've had the wettest 18 months on record, and then we've got national insurance rises and living wages, and then we've got an SFI pause, and then we've got Donald Trump, and then undoubtedly we've got the EIP, the OEP, the Office for Environmental Protection, signalling to government you've got to regulate now. We've got ERP targets to meet. There's a lot to do here, but I think the government are trying to bring some of this together with a land use framework, the food strategy, the LNRS. I think will be really exciting to see. So that local nature recovery strategy, opportunities for nature, and how they're mapping that. And I think that's got some real. I'm really quite excited. In Norfolk and Suffolk, they've teamed up together, and they've created these Lawton zones. And then in Norfolk and Suffolk, they took it one step further, so Lawton plus zones. So they've brought in the county wildlife sites and diocese land as well. And this is really sort of looking at opportunities. It's not telling people what they've got to do, but what is the opportunities and where they might be best placed. It's all quite exciting.
So many farmers and other organisations have actually been quite worried that nature recovery is off the table. You're saying very differently now, Peter.
Certainly one of the assumptions that nature recovery is at the front of that. Yeah.
And as the new head of agriculture at Natural England, obviously there is a lot going on. What's your overarching aim? What do you hope to deliver?
I just want to see a thriving UK farming industry, and farm profitability is the biggest thing. When I put my farmer hat on or my farmer head on, all I'm thinking about is how can we be profitable? We've got to be profitable before we can do any of this stuff. If we can't put food on our plates, we can't deal with any of this other stuff. So I am really keen to look at how we can build that resilience, and whether that is a more regenerative, a lower input system going forwards. I can just see there's so many good things that are coming out of that. We're seeing these crazy weather events, and so how do we cope with wetter winters? How do we cope with drier summers? And if we're not doing this different way of farming, that probably we don't fully understand yet of how to do it right, and we need some education, and we need to take people on a journey. We need to understand the risks and the pitfalls and how we go on that journey. And this is about building resilience into that farming business for the future, and that's what I just want to see. So what am I focused on? That's what I'd like to see. How are we going to do it? Hopefully with your help. But they're not going to listen to me, Johann, so you're going to have to start spreading this message well.
That's Peter Craven, the new head of agriculture at Natural England, speaking to us here on the Farmers Weekly podcast at this week's Farmers Weekly Transition live event. Louise, Peter Craven there, fourth generation farmer, Nuffield scholar, Y College graduate, degree in agricultural business management, worked for NIAB. He seems to tick a lot of boxes. What did you think to the way he came across?
Well, he had plenty to say, didn't he? And he was positive and optimistic. He did admit that he'd only had his feet under the table for a few months. So, he was still, I suppose, feeling his way in the new job. But they're obviously getting on with some work. He did talk about various work streams that were happening related to the SFI. He's got a lot on his plate, I'm sure, and they're going to be very busy. The DEFRA doesn't always stick to the timescales that they say they're going to stick to, but they've just got to crack on. The mood out there amongst farmers is, as we all know, it's very low generally, and they just need to get on and do some really good work that's going to help farmers and help the environment.
Some interesting comments regarding the future of the sustainable farming incentive in England.
Well, I think there was some good news for the farming industry in that he told us that the SFI would be coming back. Now, obviously, that's going to be coming back in a different form and with a different budget, and quite a few of those things are unknown at the moment. But they are working on it, and he was extremely positive about the fact that it would be available, I think, probably next year. The unknown with it, the biggest unknown rather with it at the moment, is the spending review, which obviously that's got to happen before they then have a budget for this. So I think one of the things that's probably come out quite strongly is that they do need to see value for money. If they're going to put funding into the new SFI, whatever it's called, whatever it looks like, farmers who are able to get an agreement in that have got to show what they are delivering. So I think from that we can probably assume that some of the actions that we have now won't be here with us in a year's time, because it's really got to deliver quite a bit for the environment and the environmental services that the Treasury want from it. So, as I said, it was good to hear that Peter was optimistic. And I mean, I challenged him quite hard on the fact. I said, we're not sure that it will ever come back. But he seemed to think definitely, he told us definitely it would be coming back. So there is some relief, I think, on that. And it'll be interesting to have another chat with him 6 months down the line or something.
Yeah, points during the conversation, Louise. I felt Peter Craven was relentlessly optimistic. But Hugh, he did say there is going to be, very likely anyway, a reduced budget for the SFI.
Yeah, I think the reduced budget thing, I suppose it's down to, are they going to reduce the budget overall and keep the number of menu options available? Which it does get to, it will come to a point where people will say, if it's reduced so much, people just won't bother. They just don't want the hassle of it. They'll just do their own thing. Or are they going to reduce the number of options and keep the subsidy element or the payment credible enough that people actually want to interact and take part? It's a really delicate thing. And as Louise said, it comes back to the spending review. And if the spending review doles out not a lot of cash, then there ain't going to be a lot of SFI going on, is there?
And there's absolutely no point having that really, really, really long list of actions if they aren't being taken up.
Exactly.
You made the point, Hugh, there about, but will all those actions remain, budget accordingly? But, if they're not being taken up, which I think a lot of them weren't, then there's really not much point having them there.
No, and I think when you think about the do your own thing, and I've contemplated it, and I nearly did it when we came out of the last big 10-year stewardship thing finished, or whatever the heck it was, HLS. I lose track of what they're called. When did that come out? 2022 that finished. That was the end of a 10-year. And at that stage, I was like, actually, we're just going to go it alone here because there's no clarity here. There's nothing. We're not going to get the rewards we had in that. And then I sort of looked at the SFI and thought, yeah, okay, actually, we'll do the SFI. We're doing that at the moment, apart from obviously my archaeological feature error, which I've got at the moment. So I'm short of $4,000 at the moment. But you do think like the margins, we've had margins on this farm now for 20 odd years. And I definitely think the margins are a really useful thing. And I think it's definitely improved you see more stuff going on. There's more, whether it's kestrels hunting, whether it's stuff going on in the hedgerows. It's just more, and you'll think to yourself, heck, if I'm going to plough that out and I'm going to take that right out to that or up to the statutory line of a hedgerow, it's quite a big deal. And actually do the economics on what was it worth if we were actually farming it. We got 7 hectares of margins, I think 7 or 8 hectares of them. It is. There's lots of decision making coming, but it all depends. It all hangs on that budget settlement, and it will all hang on the payments and the levels of the payments. And bear in mind as well with SFI, with agri-environment previous to SFI, it didn't really penetrate that much into the lowland and upland, possibly more actually than the lowland grassland farmer. It obviously got very much into the arable systems because of the way the options were tailored. So if you strip the thing back even more, haven't got a Scooby of getting close to those grassland farmers, which are the very ones that need the support. And actually, in terms of introducing a bit of biodiversity, so you put a margin on a grass field, so it's not wall-to-wall bowling green with sheep grazing it. It's the sort of place you need to be doing it as well. It's going to be an interesting thing to see what happens.
Yeah, the other thing they're going to have to deal with is, if you like, trust and confidence. Confidence in the system is at an all-time low at the moment. So, if
not
they
too
are
many archaeological
with
features, Louise?
Yeah, correct. And if they are going to come out with a new scheme, they're going to have to work jolly hard at recruiting people to go into it. If we have the sort of chop and change situation that we've had with the current system.
And as I've said before, any sensible person, and I know this sounds really harsh, and some people might say it's a flippant comment, but surely if you're credibly looking at your farm business, you will be running 2 budgets, one with support, one without at the moment. And I wouldn't want that to tempt either way, but you'd be stupid to assume, there'll definitely be, 1.5 billion in the spending review, so we should at least get something. I'm budgeting, doing 2 budgets and saying, well, yeah, this, and then it looks like this or it looks like this, rightly or wrongly. People will throw rocks at the radio. Well, you should be farming and you should be supported to do it. Yeah, you're right, you should. But the real world is this, and that's actually where we're living. So it's tricky, isn't it?
The Farmers Weekly Podcast.
And now a special shout out and message from this week's sponsor of the Farmers Weekly Podcast.
Harvester Parts Limited, your partner for spares and replacement parts.
When you're battling against a breakdown at the busiest time of year, the most important thing to be is ahead of the game.
Make sure your kit is in working order so you're ready to roll when you're up against it.
And when the stuff does go wrong, because it always does, make sure you've got a reliable partner who can get the right part to you next day.
For spare parts for all major manufacturers, call the team at Harvester Parts on 07774 273 822. That's 07774 273 822.
Or simply visit www.harvesterpartslimited.co.uk. That's harvesterpartsltd.co.uk for a calmer, more productive harvest.
The Farmers Weekly Podcast.
You're listening to the Farmers Weekly Podcast. Welcome along wherever you're listening to us from. You can email us, podcast@fwi.co.uk. And if you're in the UK itself, you can message us by texting the word farm, followed by your message to 88440. We'd love to hear from you and all your news. Now, spare a thought for Kent farmer Alan Clifton Holt going quietly about his business when all of a sudden a Spitfire fighter plane crash lands in one of his fields. No, this wasn't during the Battle of Britain. It was, in fact, just a week or so ago during preparations for the 80th anniversary of VE Day, Victory in Europe. Not what we were expecting to drop into one of our fields over VE anniversary weekend, says Alan. Fortunately, no one was seriously injured, and Alan has posted a photo of the Spitfire resting in a mustard field on social media, and we'll put a link to that on the show notes page of this episode of the Farmers Weekly Podcast. But Hugh, did you get up to anything good over the bank holiday weekend?
Not really, no. I was working most of it, yeah. But it's always good to have that bank holiday day to catch up on the week ahead when everyone else isn't working. This week, though, very important. We went down to see a small abattoir in Sussex with an MP, Sarah Dyke, the Lib Dem MP for Somerton and Frome, who's done a lot of work on this, actually. We've got a revved up about it. And actually, there's some real issues here for small abattoir operators all over the country. Where we are in the south, I've said it before on this, we're on sort of critical life support. We've got one left, really, south of the Thames. There's two. But for small producers that rely on these small abattoirs, it's really hard and it's really worrying for them. Anyway, Sarah initiated a backbench business debate in Westminster Hall on Thursday, which was fantastic. She did a great job. Despite VE Day celebrations going on, there were still a few MPs went along and made some really relevant points, whether we're talking about FSA legislation and talking about just the general difficulties these plants have. And what a struggle it is and how we need to do all we can to preserve them for lots of reasons, whether it's about protecting artisan suppliers and smaller end suppliers or keeping our food chain resilient and not just relying on one or two huge plants. Some really busy stuff there and some really worthwhile stuff. And let's hope that moves on and we get the results that we need.
Yeah, well done to Lib Dem MP Sarah Dyke for initiating that discussion. Now, Louise, I've had an email this week and I'm not going to read out who it's from, and you'll see why when I start to read it. But she's a real fan of the Farmers Weekly podcast, and she says she listens with interest to the podcast, including our recent discussion about succession and passing on the farm to the next generation. My sister and I found out we inherited the family farm at our father's wake, she says. We both live 250 miles away and her father never told us a thing about farming. He left a second wife and her children. We've spent 7 years trying to negotiate a land split. It's all been truly disastrous, one costly nightmare after another. My lesson from this: do not lock siblings together and don't leave them something they don't want. A sad and sorry tale there, but also a lesson in succession planning, Louise.
Yeah, and a real lesson there about communication, isn't it? And we did actually talk about that, I think, in the item that we did. And our expert on the podcast said that it's so often it's because communication just hasn't happened and it hasn't been timely. Well, by the sounds of the email you received, Johann, there was, very little communication whatsoever. And what a shame that being left a farm just comes out of the blue, really, when you're not expecting it. And what did she say? 7 years it's taken to sort it out. I'm not even sure if it is fully sorted out now. So, that wasn't really a gift that she wanted by the sound of it.
No, not at all. Many people would love to be left a farm, wouldn't they? But of course, when it happens in this instance, for sure, not a happy ending at all. Louise, any messages for you this week?
We have had some messages this week, but they were all messages given to me in person when I was at the Farmers Weekly Transition Live event yesterday. So quite a few of the people that I bumped into saying that they've been enjoying the podcast, that they are regular listeners, and that we need to keep going with it and keep bringing them the news because, especially at such a busy time of year, they quite like the fact that audio is a very easy way for them to keep up to date with what's going on.
Yeah, I had similar messages at Transition Live. This is the Farmers Weekly. Hundreds of visitors attending the Farmers Weekly Transition Live day at Leeds University, all looking at ways to secure a more sustainable future for their farm business, not just environmentally, but from a business point of view as well. And many of them emphasising the importance of profitability, of securing a profit if they are to do the right thing when it comes to the environment, Hugh.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't be in the green if you're in the red, as the old saying goes. But it's tricky. Look, some welcome news this week that the grants are back for some of the technology stuff. I know everyone's very cross with the government, obviously around SFI and tax and everything else. But they have this week, if you haven't heard, opened a new farming equipment technology fund round, about 40 or 50 million quid there. So the very stuff that you need to try and make your business more efficient and more sustainable and hopefully more profitable. Obviously, it comes with strings attached and comes with forms to be filled in, and you have to be wary that all the prices don't suddenly hike up for all the suppliers as soon as the grant thing opens, and that it gets delivered within the time of the grant. But nevertheless, it is welcome funds into farming bank accounts at a time when people are trying to upgrade, absolutely, Johann, to become more efficient and to reduce their environmental impact. It's really important. And despite what everyone else says, and despite all the politicians saying, oh, we're a bit bored with this net zero thing, or we're a bit bored with that, we are the guys that are at the coalface. We're the guys like where we are in the south of England at the moment, where there's no blooming rain forecast for Lord knows how long. Yeah. It is happening, and we do need to sort it all out environmentally. So, yeah, absolutely. Sort your efficiency and your impacts out. Hopefully, in the long term, it'll make you more profitable.
Exactly right, Hugh. Profit from farming and profit from the environment going hand in hand, a match made in heaven. Profit, though, from this week's commodity markets? What's happening?
Thank you, Johann. The Finnish steer deadweight this week up marginally on the week, just not quite up a penny, 703.4, up from 702.6 last week. The live weight goes up by 3p, 386.2. Sheep this week, SQQ on the deadweight, 686.2, pretty much stands on the week. The live weight drops back about 16p, goes to 304.1. Pig price, SPP this week, actually goes up a penny, 206 dead, up from 205 last week. Arable markets, not as well, it's some and some actually, because the feed wheat prices dropped back by about 60 odd p, 162.90 back from 163.50. Milling wheat 182.30 up. That's gone up from 176.70 last week. Just to make you throw rocks at the radio, 247.9 was the price for milling wheat a year ago today. Feed barley £151.20. That's dropped back £4 on the week. 428.30 is the rate price this week. That's gone back about £1. Feed peas stand on at 209.5, and feed beans stand on at 219.10. Red diesel this week drops back again as a lackluster energy market, which is good for lots of things. 63.42. That is almost back a penny on the week.
The Farmers Weekly Podcast.
And finally, as the silage season hots up and grass chopper pilots get busy, farmers and farm workers are being reminded to stay safe in the field and on the road. High-sided silage trailers can pose a particular hazard and be deceptively heavy. Well, earlier we were joined by friend of the podcast, Jane Gurney, from the Tilly Your Trailer campaign with a seasonal reminder. A busy time of year, Jane, and trailer safety is often overlooked in the rush to get things done on time.
Yeah, it is. It's really, really important that we engage properly with safety from maintenance, but also daily checks, which are an essential legal requirement. But what we need to do is to really make people understand how they can access the right information and check the trailer in the proper way. That's really essential.
And silaging, those trailer loads are deceptively heavy in many cases.
They can be. So what we've got to remember is the weight of our trailer still remains at 18.29. That's the complete machine and your load. But what's really important with silage is that if you're putting silage sides on, be safe, make sure that you're putting them on properly in a controlled environment. You're bolting them on properly. If you've got bolts missing, it's essential that you replace them, because if that falls, then that will cause a catastrophe, and we will end up with with an incident that didn't need to occur from a simple mistake. Also, you've then taken off your rollover sheet. You can't put a sheet on the top of it, and the load will be treated for all intents and purposes like a hay and straw load. If it's blowing out excessively onto the highway, into the traffic that's behind you, then absolutely you need to slow down and make sure that you're not inconveniencing other drivers and endangering them. But it must be 18-inch ullage. So that means it must be 18 inches below the top of that machine in order to be unsheeted.
Now, you say this is all about safety. People listening to this might think, well, I don't really need to bother. I could get away with this. But the thing is, they might not get away with it. They might cause a fatal accident. And even if they don't, they still might get pulled over by the police.
Yeah, absolutely. You could be stopped, but the tragedy is it could cause an incident that changes another family's life as well as yours. And if you're the operator, you and the owner are going to be taking part of that responsibility. So what we need to do is to take that time to do things properly. We're always driven, aren't we, by the weather and, just getting on. So we're always got someone on our back for time, the daylight hours and so on, and to make sure we're safe. So it's really essential. We've got our flashing lights. We've got all of our lights working, that we are displaying a number plate. But on an agricultural trailer, the number plate needs to be a plate that belongs to a machine that's owned by that business. It doesn't have to be matching back to front. So no need to keep changing your plate. You could put the same number plate on 10 trailers. It wouldn't matter. But you must have your plate on. Make sure it's clean and just stay a distance from the back when it's unloading, and don't take silly risks.
And earlier, Jane, you mentioned about these daily checks. Where can people find out how to do them?
So some years ago, we asked the trailer manufacturers to work with us to offer free checks for people to put them all in one place. So we've got the Head to Toe app. So it's Head to TOW. You can access it by going on the tillypass.co.uk website. Click at the top on your iPad or your phone, Android or Apple. Just click on the top of it, and it will let you load the app for free. It's free to use. It's free for everyone. No one has to worry. If you haven't got a tilly on your trailer, you can still use it. And on there, you'll find lots of trailer manufacturers, Richard Weston, Wests, Bailey's, Larrington's K2. All of those will give you their daily checks. But if you go on the Richard Weston one, there's a video, shows you how to walk around and check what you should be doing every day. And also Bailey's have put a video up. It's a really useful link. And they're all together. So if you change trailer at lunchtime, you must check that trailer for yourself. You can't take it on trust. A person in the morning check that trailer. So changing combinations isn't ideal. It's time consuming, but they must be checked and record it. So you can print off the check, and you can stick it on a clipboard. You can put it in an old exercise book. You can also go online and hit the Head to Toe page, and you can also load that there. And there is a map on the app that gives you access to information. You can ring us and ask questions. You can ring any of the dealerships that are part of the Tilly, and also there's access to the manufacturers there. So it's really important, useful app, Head to Toe, and it's free to go.
Head to Toe, free to go. Jane Gurney from the Tilly Your Trailer campaign, thank you for talking to us here on the Farmers Weekly podcast, and we'll put a link to the Head to Toe app and the Tilly Pass on the show notes page of this episode. So Hugh, we talked about silaging earlier on. Trailer safety, often overlooked, but really important, a really, really serious issue.
It's a hugely serious issue. When you think about the size of these trailers now that we need to be viable, there's some serious weight there. Gone are the days when I remember once my mother drove off the bridge with a Massey 185 with one of our 3-ton Grossi silage trailers, with those ones with corrugated tin up the side, and they literally used to carry about 2.5, 3 ton. I mean, if she'd gone off the side of the bridge now, well, she wouldn't now, she's 80, 88, but if she'd gone off the side of the bridge with one of these great, huge sort of 16-ton trailers or 18-ton trailers with the sides up, and you got 10, 12 ton of silage in, it's just everything, it's just all bigger, so the risks are higher. So getting the attention to detail on the braking, on the lights, and thinking more, in terms of spatial awareness, really, really important. And we've seen, look, it's horrific when it goes wrong. There's still a death toll on farms, which is unacceptable, whether it's around trailers or all the other issues that go when it goes wrong. So yeah, just check the trailers, check the pipes, check the brakes, check the wires. Just make sure it all works, please, because it's just not worth doing otherwise.
And this stuff, these checks, Louise, they're easy to do. It's all available on the Head to Toe app. That's Head to TOW, as Jane Gurney was saying there in the audio.
Well, it sounds as though it's very easy to do. And I think the easier you make these things, then the more likely people are to carry them out and do them. And as you said, or we've talked about safety before on this podcast. We will keep talking about it again. This isn't just about being safe on the farm, is it? It's about being safe on the road as well. And we know how busy the roads are now. So, if it's at your fingertips, on an app, why wouldn't you do it? You've got that with you. Carry on, get it done, be safe and sleep well at night.
Yeah, sleep well at night, people, and stay safe. And do look at the show notes page if you want to know more about trailer safety. It won't take you very long at all, and it could save your life. That's about it for this episode of the Farmers Weekly podcast. We do hope you've enjoyed what you've heard. If you have, please do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you really like what you've heard, please do leave us a 5-star review. We'll be back next week with all the latest news, views and analysis from everything that's been happening in UK agriculture. But for now, I'm Johann.
I'm Louise Impey.
And I'm Hugh Broom.
Thank you for listening.